Hello and welcome to County Board Wrap-Up, where each month we take an in-depth look at the key actions by the County Board, as well as important county news that affects you and our community. I'm your host, Kara O'Donnell, and joining me today, as always, is County Board Chair Matt DeFerranti, as well as Board Member Christian Dorsey. And we have a special guest star this month on County Board Wrap-Up in his first appearance with us, County Manager Mark Schwartz. Mark, thank you for joining us today. Matt, Christian, you as well. Now, everyone's here today to talk about two big issues: the county's ongoing response to the pandemic, including the vaccine program, as well as the proposed fiscal year 2022 budget. Now, we'll start with the COVID-19 pandemic. It's officially been deemed the longest local emergency in Arlington's history. And as we approach the 1-year mark of that emergency, it remains county government's top priorities. So, Mark, I'm going to start with you. We're going to put you in the hot seat right away here on your first appearance on County Board Wrap-Up. So if you could give us a brief summary of where things stand with Arlingtonians getting vaccinated.
Thank you very much, Kara. I'm glad to be here. So we covered a lot of this information last week, but I'll give you up to the moment statistics. We have received over 15,000 doses of vaccine and administered about 14,000 first doses. And we have over close to 5,000 second doses. We have two sites, one down at Sequoia, the other at Walter Reed Community Center. We're working our way through the list of priorities laid out by the state. We're currently vaccinating those who are 65 plus. We're about 65 to 70% through there. I have had the opportunity to visit our site down at Sequoia, and we are doing a very, I think, an excellent job once people are showing up, getting them through the system, either getting the Moderna or Pfizer vaccine and getting all sorts of information out to people. The one thing that we're spending a lot of time on right now is trying to get people pre-registered. And I know that board members have been very focused on this. We started this week having teams of people go out to Arlington Food Assistance Center and some of our committed affordable housing projects to have people sign up and get in the system. You can't get vaccinated unless you pre-register. And that's been the main focus of what we've been doing. And we really want people to get involved in that. And sort of the last point is that we do not have nearly enough vaccine. We're still getting shy of about 3,000 vaccine doses a week. And with that, the pace is still going much slower than we would like.
Now, Mark, you mentioned the pre-registration, and of course, a question on a lot of Arlingtonians' minds was this migration to a statewide pre-registration system. Let's talk a little bit about the timeline associated with that.
Right. So back, I think it was on the 12th of February, the state asked us to shut down our pre-registration system, and they were going to stand up a statewide system on the 15th, which was a Tuesday. So we shut our system down. The state stood up its system on the 15th. The state system hasn't worked very well for the moment. They're working on improving it. But I wanted to assure everyone who signed up with Arlington, the over 40,000 people who pre-registered, they are in line, all their names are intact, and we're working our way through that list. We still have a fair amount to go. People who've signed up with the state system have been frustrated because as they sign up and they go back in to check to see if they can see their name, that isn't actually functioning very well at the moment. We've been told by the state that by the end of the week we're in right now, which is the 26th, 27th, that should be better. But it's caused a lot of frustration on the part of a lot of Arlingtonians who wanted to go in and make sure, because our data was supposed to be in the state system, to check. You know, people want to know that they're in there. They type in their name and it doesn't come back, and it adds to their sense of frustration and panic. And so a lot of people have been going in and registering on the state system. So, and as much as we say that's not necessary, if people can't see their name, they're going to keep doing that. So the state's working on it. We're very frustrated with it. And I just wanted to assure everybody, if you've signed up, pre-registered, you're in the queue. When the shots become available, you will get notified.
Now, I know a lot of folks are hearing things in the news media, what have you, about vaccines being available at local pharmacies, at CVS, at Safeway, perhaps some others. What can you tell us about that pharmacy program, and how, if at all, does it affect the county's efforts?
Yeah, so thanks for that question. The federal government has been providing a relatively small number of doses directly to pharmacies. So in Arlington, there are 3 Safeways. There's also a CVS along Columbia Pike and a Giant on South Glebe Road that have been getting some, when I say small amounts, I think 70 doses have been going to each of the Safeways. That system, where they're being distributed directly to them, is directly from the federal government to those pharmacies. We had really hoped that those doses could have come to us and that we could then provide them to the pharmacies so that we could integrate our sign-up system. So that is not the case right now. The pharmacies have said they're going to limit the people who get to take those vaccines to those who are 65 and older, but they have not said they would limit it to Arlingtonians. So there's a little bit of a strange dance going on now where people in Virginia are trying to find whatever CVS, whatever Giant, whatever Safeway they can to go in and get a shot. And it's led to some additional, I would say, in a good day, complexity, on a bad day, chaos. So we have not integrated that with our system, even though we would like to. And it's just another added layer of complexity and confusion.
Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, it does help get more Arlingtonians vaccinated. And so every little bit helps. Folks just need to understand they're 2 completely separate systems. Let's talk a little bit, and Matt, Christian, you may want to chime in here as well, about equity in the vaccine rollout, as well as vaccine hesitancy. Can you take a look at all about the efforts to ensure health equity in this rollout? And is vaccine hesitancy a problem at all here in Arlington?
Sure. Thank you, Kara. I'll just start with pointing out that, in addition, Mark mentioned the efforts with the Complete Vaccine Committee, the outreach efforts that we're doing, going to AFAC and affordable housing units. We're also partnering with the Free Clinic. And this week, we've been working on finalizing an agreement to do some vaccines there. It's going to take a few more days, but we have been in discussions, and Mark and Ruben have been leading us in that regard. So I think that's very important, because we know historically our Black and Brown residents have been underserved in terms of health care. And we really have to make sure that our vaccine doses are going to those most in need and most at risk, which unfortunately still is the case more often than we'd like, our communities and individuals of color. So we're working, the Free Clinic is located on Columbia Pike, and there's an opportunity, because they have relationships with individuals that are uninsured and underinsured, and we can help address equity in that way. So those are 2 components. And you mentioned also vaccine hesitancy, and I think that's something that the whole board has not been stunned at, but has seen that Arlingtonians have really stepped up. And Christian, I know you've talked about that in part, as well as the equity issue too.
Indeed. And, even though it's difficult to see, equity is really at the forefront of how we've rolled out the vaccination program and how it was structured by basing it on age and priority group. It was designed to address those most at risk. And we understand that many people who are at significant risk for COVID complications and severe illness and death happen to be people who are racial and ethnic minorities. And if they are in those priority groups for age and occupation, they have had access to this vaccine from the very beginning. But within that, we know that there's that second layer that you talked about, Kara. Are there people who are vaccine hesitant, or maybe even more to the point, not necessarily aware of what they need to do in terms of getting on that pre-registration list and how they raise their hand to get in line so that when their number is called, they will get the access. And that's where we've enlisted the help of our community. The wonderful decision to repurpose our Complete count committee that worked towards community engagement in the census to a complete vaccination effort is just a masterstroke. And getting those individuals to recruit partner organizations who will then go to communities who we want to prioritize and make sure get vaccinated, making sure they not only know what the processes are that need to be followed, but that they can address any questions about vaccine hesitancy for people who may rightly have a distrust of these national vaccination programs. Fortunately, it seems that a lot of polling data that I've seen has shown that vaccine hesitancy among our targeted groups is probably less of an issue than just making sure they know how to do it, making sure they get into the system. So we're very much oriented on doing that.
Okay. And of course, vaccine is what is on everyone's top of mind at the moment, but there are still quite a few pandemic-related issues not related to vaccines that are surrounding the county. What are some of the other efforts that are being discussed and worked on right now?
Well, I'll start. All of us have been thinking a lot about eviction prevention, making sure that people can stay in their homes. And we talked in the board meetings about over 2,600 individual households have been helped with some rent relief and cost relief so that they can stay in their homes. And then there's also hunger, which we know has increased. Food insecurity has increased, and we as a board have stepped up with resources, but we're also in the process of finalizing a committee that led by Mark as manager, but with all of our support and input that is going to seek to address the increase in hunger and also create some thoughts and a strategic plan to address the sustainability of our hunger system. We've had a lot of PTA presidents step up, and we need to get their best thinking and really work on that challenge. So those are two, and I'm sure that there's others. We continue, as you said, COVID and vaccine are our first, second, third priorities at this moment. So I don't know, Mark or Christian, if you had pieces to add. We're doing a lot as we try to respond to the year anniversary of the pandemic.
And I'll just maybe tee up Mark for the next segment by saying, the unfortunate reality of this pandemic is while it has certainly affected some people most acutely, those who have gotten sick, those who have died, those who are facing the severe, life sustainability issues that Matt mentioned, but it affects everyone, every single resident and stakeholder in our community. And one of the ways in which that's very well reflected is in how it's impacted county government and our budget. Revenues have been significantly curtailed. In addition to meeting extraordinary needs, it means that there's had to be an on-the-fly rethinking of how we do just about everything in Arlington County government with not only new revenue levels in the immediate, but also an outlook that is at best uncertain. So, this is something where COVID all of the time, but the reverberations and echoes, you can't escape them. They're everywhere.